My name is Patricia, and I was 29 years old when I thought I had found my soulmate, Keith. Our whirlwind romance led to marriage within just a year. Keith, an accountant, is a tall man whose infectious laughter fills any room. I work in digital marketing, and painting is my weekend passion. I've always been a meticulous planner, while Keith was more spontaneous. We complemented each other perfectly, or so it seemed. The day after our wedding, our living room was cluttered with gifts and cards, a beautiful chaos left from our celebration. That's when Keith's parents, Judy and Logan, came over. Our quick marriage meant I hadn't spent much time with them, but they seemed pleasant enough at first. As we began opening the gifts, I noticed Judy and Logan were particularly interested in what we received. "Is that a crystal vase?" Judy asked, picking up a sparkling vase from my Aunt Kelly. She examined it closely, clearly captivated by it. "Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it?" I replied, trying to divert her attention away from claiming it. However, Judy soon set it aside, suggesting nonchalantly, "We can find a good place for this at our house." Keith was distracted by some intricate kitchen tools from his cousin and didn't seem to notice. I gave him a pleading look, hoping he would intervene. He chuckled and told his mother, "Mom, that's our wedding gift," treating the situation as a joke. "Oh, come on. It'll just gather dust here. We'll use it," Logan added, wrapping an arm around Judy, making light of the matter. "Trying to keep the peace," I insisted. "Actually, I was thinking it would look great in our foyer." Judy's expression shifted to a mix of surprise and slight annoyance. "Patricia, you need to learn to share. We're family now, and families help each other out," she lectured, as if imparting a lesson. Keith, sensing the tension, quickly tried to diffuse it. "Let's not worry about this now. We got plenty of gifts." I nodded, swallowing my frustration. As they continued to earmark items for themselves, I felt as though strangers were laying claim to parts of my new life, and Keith just let them. The first year of our marriage passed swiftly, and soon it was time to celebrate our anniversary. Wanting it to be a memorable event, I reserved a table at Chez Louis, a quaint restaurant we both adored. I thought it would be thoughtful to invite Keith's parents, showing them they were valued. As we arrived, Judy and Logan were already there, browsing the menus. "This place is fancy," Judy remarked, her eyes on the elegant decor. Keith squeezed my hand under the table, silently appreciating my effort. As the evening unfolded, I hoped that this dinner would bridge the gaps and strengthen our family bonds. As we settled into our seats at the restaurant to celebrate our anniversary, I chose the salmon, Keith's favorite, while Judy's eyes quickly darted to the most extravagant options on the menu. "We'll have the lobster and the filet mignon," she announced, choosing the priciest items effortlessly. Logan chimed in with a cheeky wink to the waiter, "And why not add a bottle of your finest wines?" My smile tightened as I attempted to keep the atmosphere light. "Quite the celebration, huh?" I remarked. Keith simply shrugged. "It's a special night. Let's not worry about the cost." Throughout the dinner, Judy and Logan seemed to relish every bite as if it was a feast fit for royalty, seemingly oblivious to the hefty bill that would follow. As we enjoyed our meal, I couldn't shake the feeling that our anniversary was being overshadowed by their lavish choices. When the check arrived, I noticed Keith's surprise at the amount, but he quickly composed himself and handed over his card to the waiter. As we left, Judy linked her arm with mine, her voice full of contentment. "Patricia, this was just lovely. We should do this again next year." Thanksgiving was just around the corner, and with it, the onset of the holiday season. Keith and I had begun to decorate our home, blending autumn hues with early Christmas festivity, creating a warm, inviting space. One evening, as we hung lights around the living room windows, Keith received a message. He chuckled as he read it. "Oh, my parents are ahead of the game. They've already sent over their Christmas wish list." "Curious," I asked. "Wish list?" "Yeah, they send one every year. It makes shopping easier," he explained, scrolling through his phone. Handing it to me, I was taken aback by the extensive list filled with high-end electronics, designer clothes, and luxury goods that seemed more extravagant than necessary. "They can't be serious," I remarked, scrolling through the list in disbelief. Keith shrugged as he took his phone back. They like the good stuff. What can I say? I was at a loss for words, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. With Keith's birthday also approaching, I had been excited to give him a special watch he had been eyeing for months. Now, the excitement was dampened by the thought that our holiday gifts seemed more about ticking off items on a lavish list than celebrating our love. When it came time for us to make our holiday wish list, I half-jokingly suggested, maybe we should just ask for charitable donations in our name. Keith laughed. Good one, but seriously, you need a new laptop, right? As the holidays approached, I decided on a practical gift for Judy and Logan, a nice coffee maker, nothing too extravagant. In return, they gifted me a set of scented candles. The candles were lovely, but the stark difference in our gift exchange was evident. Keith, however, seemed pleased with the sophisticated drone they gifted him. The unspoken expectation was clear. We were to give generously and receive modestly. It didn't sit right with me, but mentioning it only seemed to invite tension, so I remained silent, wrapping gifts and maintaining a cheerful demeanor through the holiday celebrations. Sitting at my desk, I was absorbed in work when the ping of an email notification drew my attention. It was about my quarterly bonus, which turned out to be more generous than expected. Immediately, I thought of using it for something special for Keith and me, a gesture to reignite the joy in our increasingly strained relationship. We had often dreamed of a romantic getaway to Venice, and it felt like the perfect opportunity to turn that dream into reality. That evening, I revealed the surprise to Keith over dinner. His reaction was pure joy. His face lit up with an excitement I hadn't seen in a long time. Venice, really? That's amazing, babe, he exclaimed, rising to give me a kiss. The happiness of the moment was palpable, but it was abruptly interrupted by his phone ringing. It was his mother. I overheard him excitedly share our plans, wishing he had kept it just between us a little longer. As he talked, I watched his enthusiasm fade into resignation. I know, you've always wanted to go, he said, his smile waning. He ended the call and turned to me, his expression somber. They want to come with us, he said, as if seeking my approval. I was stunned, my fork frozen in midair. To Venice? With us? I managed to ask, trying to keep my voice steady. Keith nodded, explaining, they said they've never been and always wanted to go. Let's take them. The room felt claustrophobic suddenly. It's supposed to be our trip, Keith. Ours, I emphasized, feeling a tightness in my chest. He was silent for a moment, then said, I know, but they're getting older and I feel bad. They've done so much for me. I thought about the unbalanced gift exchanges, the overindulgent anniversary dinner, and countless other concessions we had made. But this is our time, I insisted firmly. We can plan a trip with them some other time. This bonus, it's for us. Keith sighed, a deep sound of frustration. They won't understand that you know how they are. And you know how hard I've worked for this, I said, my words heavy with emotion. I want us to enjoy this together, just us, like we planned. Keith remained silent for a while, then relented. Okay, we'll tell them some other time might work better. But when it came time to have that conversation, Keith's resolve wavered. Look, maybe we can all go together next year, he suggested, but Judy was quick to dismiss the idea over the speakerphone. Why next year? We can afford it now, she countered, her tone thick with disappointment. I couldn't hold back any longer. Because this trip is for us, Judy. Keith and we need this time together, I said, my frustration evident. There was a pause before Judy retorted sharply. Well, that's very selfish of you, Patricia. Very selfish indeed. After the call, the atmosphere at home grew tense. Keith was visibly conflicted, but I stood firm. This trip to Venice was meant to be a dream for us, and I wasn't going to let it be compromised. In the days that followed, Keith seemed like a shadow of himself, leaving early for work and returning late. Our interactions dwindled to the bare minimum. Dinner's in the oven, I'd say as he walked in, my voice echoing off the walls of our now quiet home. Thanks, he'd reply, his voice equally empty, reflecting the growing distance between us. He'd reply with a word that felt hollow, lingering in the space between us. I missed him. Missed us. I yearned for the days when we dreamed together on the couch, our plans and laughter entwining effortlessly. I longed to break through the invisible wall that seemed to have erected itself after the argument about Venice. But every attempt to reach out felt like speaking through a barrier of thick glass. I could see him, but couldn't truly reach him. One particularly difficult evening, I found myself sitting across from Keith at the dinner table. The only sound was his fork clinking against his plate, punctuating the heavy silence. I cleared my throat. "Keith, we can't go on like this," I began, my voice a timid whisper, fearful of breaking the fragile peace. "We need to talk about what happened. We can't let this silence become our new normal." Keith continued to eat, his expression unreadable. Then, finally, he set down his fork, a sign I had his attention, if only for a moment. "What do you want me to say, Patricia?" he asked, a hint of weariness in his voice. "I want to understand why you're taking this so hard. Why does it feel like you're choosing them over me?" I replied, the hurt clear in my tone. He sighed, folding his hands in front of him. "They're my parents, Patricia. They've been hoping to go to Venice their whole lives. And what about what we've been hoping for? Our plans? Our dreams?" My frustration began to bubble up, my words becoming more pointed in my desperation to bridge the gap between us. Keith ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of exasperation I had come to recognize. I know, he said, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I married, conflicted, torn, but not indifferent. "It's just, they've always been there for me. I feel obligated, you know." "But where does that leave us, Keith?" I pressed, leaning forward to catch his eye. "What about our marriage?" He didn't respond immediately, and in that pause, a wave of fear washed over me. Perhaps we weren't as solid as I had believed. Perhaps our foundation was less rock and more sand, easily eroded by the steady tide of his parents' needs and wants. "It's supposed to be us against the world, Keith. Not me against you and them," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the emotions welling up inside me. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I could see the conflict warring within him. "I know, Patricia. I just don't know how to make everyone happy." "That's just it," I said, a sudden clarity washing over me. "We can't always make everyone happy. But we made vows to each other, Keith. Doesn't that count for something?" He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on the table before finding mine. "It does. It counts for a lot." The rest of the meal passed in contemplative silence, a shift from the strained quiet that had become our norm. It felt as though my words had either planted a seed or perhaps watered one that had been lying dormant within Keith all this time. The next morning, the sun poured in through the windows, but its warmth seemed absent from our home. I awoke to an unsettling quiet, the other side of the bed untouched from the night before. The emptiness of the house wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, suffocating in its silence. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I reached for my phone, bracing for the usual lack of messages, a silent testament to the distance between us. Instead, my screen was flooded with notifications, all from my bank. A lump formed in my throat as I read the details, multiple transactions, including airline tickets. As I sat in the quiet of the early morning, an array of notifications lit up my phone, revealing a shocking reality. Hotel bookings and a pair of airline tickets to Venice had been purchased under my account while I was asleep. The timestamps on the emails indicated that the flight had already departed hours ago. Keith and his parents had embarked on the Venetian getaway that was supposed to be ours, financed by the bonus I had earned. A wave of disbelief washed over me, quickly turning into anger and a profound sense of betrayal. The phone felt heavy in my hand as I processed the truth. Keith, whom I had trusted with everything, had access to my accounts and had used that trust against me. It was all there in stark black and white, the digital evidence of his deceit. My heart raced, and my mind reeled from the betrayal by the one person I had thought would always stand by me. With trembling hands, I dialed his number, though I knew he wouldn't answer, not with the time difference, and certainly not with the echoes of our last confrontation still hanging between us. As the voicemail beep sounded, almost taunting in its cheerfulness, I spoke. Keith, I saw the charges. You took your parents to Venice using my bonus. I don't even know what to say, but I hope it's worth it. I hope it's worth everything. The house felt colder and emptier after the call. The walls seemed to close in around me, heavy with the weight of unspoken words and now, likely, words that would never be spoken. I sat at the kitchen table, enveloped by silence, but inside, a storm of emotions raged. With a resolute heart, I began canceling the hotel rooms, the return flights, and every part of the trip tied to my finances. With each cancellation, I felt a part of my former life slipping away, the future I had envisioned dissolving before my eyes. Once everything was undone, I took definitive steps to sever financial ties. I contacted the bank and removed Keith's access to my accounts. Each click's a mix of fear and liberation. The man I had married, the family I had tried to integrate into, they were now strangers. Strangers who had exploited my generosity instead of cherishing it. With mechanical precision, I packed my bags, each item packed away a reminder of a dream that needed to be shelved. There was no possibility of returning to what was. No apology could mend the breach his actions had caused. Keith had made his choice clear, and in doing so, he had determined my path as well. The wedding ring, once a symbol of our commitment, now felt cold and heavy in my palm. I left it on the counter, its sparkle mocking the morning light. With one final glance at the life I was leaving behind, I shut the door on what was never truly a home. It was late afternoon by the time I drove away, my car filled with clothes and essentials, each item a stark reminder of how swiftly my life had turned. As I drove, my phone began to buzz with messages, one from Keith, several from his mother. I pulled over to read them, knowing they would only strengthen my resolve. Keith's message was simple. "Patricia, please, we need to talk about this. Can't we just discuss it?" His words rang hollow, almost insulting in their simplicity. I started to type a reply but stopped. No words could bridge the gulf between us now. His mother's messages were a mix of confusion and attempts to justify their actions, but they too fell on deaf ears. The decision was made, and the chapter was closed as I drove toward a new beginning. Amidst the shock and hurt, I turned my phone off, leaving Keith's mother's desperate messages unanswered. They were halfway around the world, enjoying the sights of Venice on a trip funded by deceit. They could sort out their accommodations. My first move was to secure my finances. I drove to the bank, where the manager, a compassionate middle-aged woman, greeted me warmly. "I need to ensure my husband can no longer access my accounts," I told her, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded with understanding, assuring me, "Let's make sure you're fully protected." By the time I left the bank, I felt a renewed sense of control. My accounts were secure, and with a resolute mind, I drove to the only place I felt I could truly relax, my sister's house. She opened the door before I even knocked, pulling me into a comforting embrace. "Patricia, I've been so worried," she said, her concern palpable. As we sat at her kitchen table, she expressed disbelief at Keith's actions. "You deserve so much better," she asserted. I nodded, the reality of the situation sinking in. "I know. That's why I'm not going back. I've canceled everything and left the house. I'm done," I declared. Isabella squeezed my hand, a mix of anger and pride on her face. "Good for you. What's your plan now?" I glanced around the familiar surroundings, a sense of relief washing over me. "I'm starting with filing for divorce. I can't stay married to someone who has so little respect for me. Do you need a lawyer?" Isabella offered immediately, ready to support me in any way she could. "I'll find one," I affirmed, feeling my resolve harden. "I need someone who doesn't know Keith or his family. I need this to be a clean cut." As Isabella and I unpacked my car and began planning the next few days, I found comfort in the mundane tasks, a grounding force amid the chaos. Standing in her kitchen with a mug of coffee warming my hands, my phone vibrated insistently. It was Keith again, his message a blend of apology and plea. "Patricia, we need to talk."
"I'm sorry."
"I miss you, and I think we can work things out." I sighed, his repeated "I'm sorry" now feeling as insubstantial as a threadbare blanket. "Not this time, Keith," I muttered under my breath, crafting a response that left no room for doubt. "There's nothing left to discuss. Please respect my decision." The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't enough to sway my resolve. This determination was put to the test a few days later when Keith's parents showed up at my sister's doorstep, their faces contorted with anger. They barged past a stunned Isabella. "You've got some nerve, Patricia," his mother exclaimed shrilly. "You ruined our family vacation. You're just a greedy, selfish woman." Isabella stepped in front of me, her posture protective. "That's enough. You're not going to come into my house and insult my sister," she declared firmly. The argument escalated quickly, catching the attention of the neighbors who began to peek out of their windows, drawn by the commotion. The confrontation was intense, but Isabella's unwavering support and my newfound clarity helped me stand firm. This was not just a moment of confrontation. It was a definitive end to a chapter of my life that I was ready to close. The confrontation with Keith's parents escalated quickly, and I was certain it would end with the police being called. Isabella, with her protective stance, firmly told them to leave, or she would call the authorities herself. Their departure did little to clear the air, leaving a palpable tension lingering in their wake. However, amidst the turmoil, a profound realization took hold. I was unequivocally done. The divorce process felt like navigating a sterile, procedural dance. I methodically signed the papers and nodded through legal explanations regarding settlements and asset divisions. Each signature seemed to sever another chain. Each document signed felt like loosening a tether that had held me bound. When it was all finally over, I stepped out of the courthouse feeling liberated. The air was fresh, and a gentle breeze played with the loose strands of my hair. Isabella was there to meet me, her embrace tight and supportive. "You did it, Patricia," she whispered, pride resonating in her voice. Indeed, I had. I stood strong against the selfishness that tried to dominate me, against the manipulation that sought to keep me chained. I walked away from the courthouse, turning my back on a past that no longer had any hold on me. Keith's messages continued to arrive for a while, apologies, pleas, and eventually, expressions of anger. But I left them unread, floating in the digital void, as I moved on with my life. The apartment I rented was modest, but filled with sunlight. I decorated it with plants, filled the shelves with books, and began making new memories. I enrolled in courses that reignited a passion for learning I had neglected for too long. One tranquil evening, as I sat on my small balcony with a cup of tea in hand, I finally deleted Keith's number from my phone. It was a symbolic gesture, but one that felt deeply cathartic. I was truly free, free to heal, free to grow, and most importantly, free to be unapologetically myself. With each new day, I felt more empowered, embracing my newfound freedom and the endless possibilities that lay ahead.